across New South Wales.
I know you're gonna dig this.
The men were able to flee with in excess of $200,000, but were arrested a short time later by police. It's believed the men, all from Sydney, were under police surveillance and are now being linked to a similar group operating in New South Wales. They too used heavy sledgehammers to terrify customers and bank staff while parting with large amounts of cash.
Yo, what's up everybody? Welcome back to the Get Down. This is Beats, Season 3, Episode 3. Slowly knocking them down. Now, I did warn you that I wouldn't be smashing them heavy this year. I got some other things on my plate. It's almost June and we're only on the third episode. I had to reschedule the guest from last week. He's still coming on. Trying to deal with a couple overseas guests, and that's always a bit of a fucking nightmare. So it is what it is. You know, I don't charge you for it, so fuck yous. No, I'm only joking. I just want to thank Russell Manser for coming on last week. That was really interesting. I just want to thank you for your honesty and your vulnerability and coming out and sharing your story. I love what you're doing, man. It's extremely important work. And this week's guest sort of follows on the important work that ex-criminals are doing in this day and age. So I guess let's just rip straight into it. First of all, I do want to send a shout out to my little homie Tyler. I know you're listening. You didn't get to listen last week because you're a good lad and you listened to this disclaimer and you turned it off. But see you out there, little man. I hope you're doing well and you look after mum. All right? Peace out, little man. Okay, this week we have another ex-criminal turned good guy. Really out there doing some amazing things, helping other people, being absolutely selfless, putting himself out there. He's gone from, doing 13 years prison to running his own business and being an incredible role model for not only just Aboriginal people, but for people in general. Just absolute proof that you can turn your life around. Let's not fuck around anymore, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Get Down, Jeffrey Morgan. Jeffrey, thanks for coming on the Get Down, brother. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Nice. Absolute pleasure.
How are you, mate?
I'm good. It's been a pretty crazy time getting back into the swing of things now that everything's opened up again, and just looking forward to sort of doing what we do. And it's been a hard couple of years for a lot of people, and no doubt every single person on this planet has felt it. So it's just a great opportunity to get back into the swing of life, I suppose.
Yeah. So you run your own business, so you would have, and you're in Sydney, so you would have copped it hard for a while there, hey?
Absolutely. Like, you couldn't go anywhere, and the craziest thing about it all was we do a lot around mental health and well-being, and I think not being able to travel out to communities, just to people in general, and be able to deliver that service during that time. We weren't even contacted, which is pretty crazy when you think about it. 2 years and a mental health and well-being service, Aboriginal one at that. I should say we service Aboriginal people, service everyone, right? But I'm a proud Aboriginal man, and we weren't contacted in that 2 years. So it always just makes me wonder, you got to think, they'll run off their legs. A recent study of kids 16 to 24, 1,000 in that control group, and 4 out of 5 of those kids thought about suicide or self-harm.
Jeez.
Now, why weren't we contacted? It just blows me away. So it's a pretty crazy time, and it's just good to get back into the swing of things and get the business back up and running. And we've been travelling quite a lot, and that's, for me, that's just a blessing to be able to impact people's lives, get in front of somebody and possibly change or save their life. To me, that's just a priceless opportunity. So 2 years not being able to do it killed us inside. Financially, it killed us. And no doubt a lot of people lost their businesses, their lives, a lot of division, segregation, separation. And it's, I get emotional talking about it because I'm pretty passionate. Losing a brother and sister to suicide, for me, that's just, the bread and butter of what you do when you get up every single day. But to be able to be put on pause, probably the best way of putting it, over the last 2 years, it's just been a crazy hard time. And if I felt it, and I'm a pretty super positive type of person who lives a very healthy lifestyle and checks in on his own mindset on a regular basis, to make sure I'm really travelling. I've got clarity around my life and what I want to achieve out of it.
Yeah.
Imagine those that weren't. Imagine those that were in a hard spot when it kicked off. And, no doubt we've lost a lot of people in that journey. It's been a crazy time, and it's just good to get back into the swing of things. Honestly, it sort of really brings a smile to my face, brother.
Yeah, well, that's good. I know of 3 people who took their lives since the start of COVID, and that's it's just like phenomenal. I know it's happening all the time, but when it's a bit closer to home, it's just like, wow, and it
Very compounding.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, for sure. If anyone was ever unsure of what, the meaning of compounding, when it comes to financial or anything like that, you just need to look at the coronavirus. and that is, I've had it this week. I finally got it, and I had it this week, and I've been like, I've been out. You might hear it in my voice. My listeners will certainly hear it in my voice. But it's been rough.
How did you travel with it? How do you go with it in general?
It was being crook.
Yeah.
I had the first night was pretty hectic. Like, I went to bed fine, jumped into bed, and I'm like, oh, I'm a little bit cold, and I'm like that.
Yep.
And I'm in Queensland. It's pretty cold up here at the moment, but it shouldn't be. But that feverish thing, and then come 4:00 in the morning, full blown hallucinations, like sweats, and fever, and then just like man flu after that, really. Bit blocked, the ears have been a bit funny, nose, like I can hear it now myself that I'm quite nasally. But
Yep.
I'm not too bad. I was tempted to contact you during the week and say, do you want to put it off? But I'm like, nah. I want to get it done. Because I know you got that program starting, so I want to get this out before the 1st. So you got the...
Mate, you're a champion. I appreciate that. And, I think that as well hopefully woke a lot of people up, and we want to run this Cut the Bullshit program because people do. We live in this world where we lie to ourselves, we make excuses, we create all these self-limiting thoughts, behaviours and beliefs. And a lot of the time it's living other people's dreams or lives. And what I mean by that in general is we sort of, someone says something to us and we carry that for the rest of our life to not believe that we can achieve anything that we want to. And imagine the goals and dreams that have gone to the grave in people's heads that thought it was crazy. And you look at some of the businesses within the world, like Facebook as the example, and those that went into the room, those that don't know that story, everyone that went into the room became a billionaire, and everyone that sort of said, oh, I'm not really sort of fussed by it, end up going to a court case trying to fight him to obviously be part of that journey as well. And they end up losing as far as I remember and knew. But in general, that shows you the opportunities that anybody out there might have that particular idea but doesn't follow through with. And I think the last 2 years has woken a lot of people up. A lot of people got into businesses and especially online businesses. And a lot of people had huge success in a short period of time because they went into survival mode and they had no other choice. And that's what pretty much started my journey in my business, probably of life personally, where I just went into survival mode, learned how to make money from, probably 12 years of age onwards. And that's just stuck with me for life. So for anyone out there, now's your chance, now's your opportunity. I think the more you listen to other people within your circle or those that have affected you throughout life, the more you hold yourself back from everything that you can be.
It's pretty good advice. I agree. Now is a time to strike. I've spoken to a few people who've started up businesses during this, and I'm like, oh, you're pretty ballsy, and they're like, nah, now's the time. Now's the time. It's quiet. It's quiet, and then when we come around the arse end of it, ready to rock and roll. But what we might do, we might backtrack a little bit. I was just I think you've answered my question for me, but would you prefer me to refer to you as Aboriginal man or Indigenous or First Nation? Do you have a preference?
I'm not fussed either way. They all sit well with me, so I'm happy.
No worries, mate. All right, we'll rip into it, mate. Can you tell us a little bit about who's your mob?
My mob is, I'm a proud Gamilarey man, hailing from Walgett in New South Wales. So although I have grown up in Everleigh Street, Redfern, and in and around the area at the time. So once I did run away from home, and obviously I was on the streets quite a lot, I ended up staying wherever I landed a couch, I suppose. But grew up down Everleigh Street, but proud Camilla Ray man from Walgett.
No worries. So that's your mother's side?
Yeah, that's my mother's side. My father was German Austrian.
Yeah.
Very strict, very, a lot of discipline in the background, and I think that's what made me who I am today. As much as I saw it as someone being super strict as a kid, for me, I realised everything he taught me back then is the character and the person I am today. So I'm forever grateful. And sometimes I just wasn't built to see it as a kid, right? I just seen kids out playing in the neighbourhood, and I just wanted to go out like everybody else. And all he wanted me to do was study and be the best at everything I could be, or took on. And, for me, it was just like, oh, you're too strict. I don't want to be in this sort of house. End up running away at 12, jumped out the first floor window, and that sort of jump transformed and changed my life forever. It's, the old hang jump. At the time, I wouldn't have been too big, I reckon. I think it was a half decent height for a 12-year-old kid, and the life of crime kicked off, mate, and I had to survive, and off we went. And it's funny because I had a comment the other day around this sort of situation and said, mate, it was about a post I posted up in regards to Spanian, a photo of Spanian and I, and the bloke goes, nothing worse than a junkie but a thief. And I explained the story real short and brief, and I said, mate, at 12 years old, I ran away from an abusive home, which it was. It was physically abusive at that time. And to me, it just held me down in a position where I was very fearful of going home or being anything of a kid as such. And all these other kids were outside playing. I was in studying, and I just couldn't see it at that time. But in general, for me, people just don't understand that people sometimes are built a particular way because they have no other choice. And as a 12-year-old kid on the streets, you're just doing anything that you possibly can to survive. And then when that becomes a part of your DNA, it becomes a part of your habits and rituals. And unfortunately for me, that stuck around for a long period of time until I started to obviously change or educate myself towards a different direction. And that just took some time.
So what was it like growing up in Redfern there? I guess people, can you explain for people who don't know whereabouts in Sydney it is, and so it's like a cultural hub for Aboriginal people, isn't it? The suburb.
Absolutely, that's probably the best way of describing it. The houses in general, I couldn't even describe the colour of the house. It was sort of like a off pink I don't know what you'd call it, but it was like an off pink. There was graffiti everywhere, windows smashed, glass everywhere, rubbish everywhere, destructive sort of nature of the place, of the beast, I suppose. Police wouldn't come down there. People in general wouldn't come into Redfern, into a whole suburb because of the fear that we had created from that area. Riots with police, fights with police getting pulled out of police cars and then the cars set on fire. And, in general, that perception of the area at the time made it one of the most notorious streets in Australia's history. And I think, you look at the people that came from there during that journey, pretty much everyone more than likely ended up in jail at some point in time during their life, doing exactly what I did, just in a survival mode. And then in a mentality where you had that hub and people who had your back, and therefore you'd step up to the plate every single time that you had to, whether it was against police or anybody else for that matter. And I think we built a really strong community that's still strong to this day. And as much as people might have saw it as a notorious street and the bad side of it, the good side of it was a real strong, tight-knit family that still, we sort of check on one another to this day, and we still, obviously, within the area are able to catch up and the love's still there. That's priceless.
I found myself there once. I was over in Sydney, and I'm like, I want to go have a look. I wanted to go and see the wall with the flag on it, and it's still there, but it's all fenced off now. That section.
Yeah, no, that's been knocked down now. So
Has
they've
it?
knocked all that down. They've rebuilt, and at that point in time, that flag wasn't there originally in Everly Street because there was houses all along that sort of path.
Yeah.
And then once they knocked the houses down, someone put up the flag on the end of, which was Monday's gym at the time.
Yeah. Is that
they then
his old man's
rebuilt.
gym?
Yeah, and they've put the gym up the top of Redfern now. And once again, same thing. The community that was there many years ago have gone back, and a lot of them still live in the streets now, but a lot of them have changed and, more business-minded, more just a different way of life. And, kids run out on the street kicking a footy like any other kid would normally, and it's just a better place to be. Monday's gym is at the top now, and a lot of that community goes in and does the classes, all at NCIE, which is the National Centre of Indigenous Excellence up in Redfern. And Shane Phillips, who was a great community leader there with Tribal Warrior, runs a program every single morning for the young kids to get in and box. I think it's at 5 a.m. every single morning, and that just gives them the discipline that we never had at that point in time to make better choices within their lives. And he's been an absolute champion of the community. On the back end of that, some great people have come out of there and done some great things. Represented Australia at sports, different people, and through to great community leaders. But it's been a huge change and a good change for that matter.
To a TV program?
Yeah. It's like my journey has been. I was just sitting back and I was literally having a shower before, and I don't know why I went into this little emotional sort of roller coaster of my past, and to be able to get a TV show 2 years after I'd spent probably 18 years in custody, in and out of custody from, a kid that was on the street surviving, getting arrested for just simple stuff, stealing, breaking in his steal motor vehicle. Then I started to get into robbery and company and then armed robbery in general. To be able to look back and 2 years after all of that, have a TV show, tells you how passionate and how committed I was to change within our community. And I think at that point in time, I was just, I'd had enough. I wanted to give back to the community, and I think finally I got the opportunity with the show and the recognition of all the hard work I'd put in over the time that I was locked up in that last sentence, 7 years, bachelor's degree in nutrition science, and just a real urge to change and save lives. And
we'll get to that. I got a few questions to ask you about that.
Nice.
So you had your own little TV show there. Were you on? I was talking about Redfern now, TV show. So they shot all in around there as well, didn't they?
That's correct.
Did you ever get a feature on that?
No, I didn't. I've never gone down the acting path, although some of my mates give it to me and call me Jason Statham at times. So maybe I need to go and do some action stunt training and then get into acting as well. But I didn't get a start on that. I had my own TV show, Jeffrey's Healthy Tips. Yeah. As I said, if that can be some inspiration to somebody out there, and you don't have to live the life of crime to get to this position. But what if if you've had these self-limiting thoughts, behaviours and beliefs because of bullying a partner, your parents, or anything in life? We live within, so many people live for other people's thoughts or actions around who they think they are, and rather than us living for ourselves. And if that can be inspiration to yourself, 2 years after I come home, I was on TV with my own show. And not only that, I was actually talking quite a lot without a script, and that put the show together. And if I can do that, then anybody can do anything. It's just how bad you want something within your life.
That's right. If you build it, they will come, mate. They will come. For sure.
Yeah, I love that movie. It was a great movie.
It was. Oh, Kevin Costner.
Old movie. Shows the age.
Yeah, all right. So we'll go back. There's a few things I definitely want to touch on, and I heard you talking the other day. So when we get to it, I really want to talk about you. You said something, conversations of convenience. So I want to get to that. I want to sort of deep dive into that. What you mean by that? Because I thought that was very interesting where I heard you say it. But so you, as a child, what was it like navigating between the Aboriginal side of your family and the non-Aboriginal side?
I was probably too young at the time when my parents up until about 12 years of age, 10, 12 years of age, sort of we're going through a bit of a struggle, probably the best way of putting it. So when I'd go with my mother, I'd go for a short period of time. I was with my father quite a lot. So I sort of disconnected as a younger kid with the Aboriginal culture, although my mother kept taking me back and forward to, well, we're all Redfern at the time, but I had very little memories. Then when I sort of got into the high school period, I went in and out of custody and I was coming home. I was still doing some stuff in custody, still doing some stuff at Renwick Boys High School. And I think it was, I just think I blocked off the Aboriginal side as a younger kid because of my father's sort of upbringing and him trying to be that run that disciplined life on myself, if that's the best way of putting it, probably a better way. But just he had a totally different way of life, and versus my mother, who was very free going and just chilled out. I think that's where I got the calmer side to myself versus my father being the quite violent side, and hence where I sort of once I went into crime, having a mentality around survival, where if you got in my way, I was going to do whatever it took to make sure you got out of the way, or especially whether it was to make money or obviously trying to stop me from making money. And I think the edge between both of those worlds didn't change until I sort of hang jumped out of that window and then definitely just rocked up and said, this is where I want to live. And at about 12 years of age onwards, I was in Everly Street. And I was always proud of both, and to this day I'm still proud of both. I wear both on my sleeve to the point where I've booked in to get a tattoo with the eagle on the back and both flags hanging out of the eagle's things, because I'm not half of this, I'm not half of that. I'm just, I'm a proud Aboriginal man, and I'm also a proud German Austrian man as well. So I've never struggled with it, to be honest. You're either proud or you're not. I think some people do go through that process, and I know friends, people I've spoken to, having a non-Indigenous mother or father, and then being judged because they're apparently half. And I think it's a sad thing, whether that's from the Aboriginal community or the non-Aboriginal community. As I said, you're either all in or you're not. And as long as you're proud around your culture, no matter what that is, then you're full. As I said, I'm just Aboriginal. There's no halves, there's no quarters, there's no...
100%.
And that's basically the best way I look at it every single time.
Yeah. I worked in an Aboriginal organisation with a youth Aboriginal organisation, and a couple young lads, quite light skin, and they were really confused, and really confused. And I remember just saying, it's not how you look, mate. It's what you identify with, and then you've got this rich heritage. You go and find it, and there was almost, well, they said, I'm ashamed, and I just want to fit in here and just walk the line. And I'm like, no, don't be ashamed, go out there and get yours. And they have, and they lent into it, and they really, they really loved it. And I was lucky enough as a white fella to sort of be in there and facilitate that with them and help them lean into it. So it's important.
Job well done, mate, because it's I've had people reach out to me pretty much, I'm not even joking, each week, probably the best way of putting it. And it's all around this conversation. And someone asked me the other day, they'd actually posted up something on social media, a painting, and so many people jumped on, you Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal and Aboriginal people. And he reached out to me and said, what are your thoughts on this? I said, mate, what someone says or thinks about yourself is on them. How you respond to the situation is the awareness of yourself. And taking you back to that conversation, I'm a proud Aboriginal man. I'm a proud German Austrian man. I'll fight for both based around whatever's happening in the world, I suppose. And that's my advice to anybody that sees this. And lean into it, as you said, because, even tonight I've seen another post about those that are just finding out that you're Aboriginal. That's cool. Just make sure that you sort of build a relationship with that side. That would be my advice to anybody out there. And those that aren't Aboriginal, that are around these people, similar to yourself, get them to lean into that situation, but learn about to get out on country, find out who your mob is, and have that identity. And this is for anybody. We sort of step away from our identity as an individual, and we let other people, as I said before, dictate to ourselves as to, oh, you can only do this much within your life. Yeah. That's their limitations. Don't ever let somebody else's limitations dictate how high you can fly within this life.
Yeah. You're an inspirational man, mate.
Thank you, brother.
We're only 20 minutes in.
It's been a. I think a lot of this stuff comes from a lot of trauma, and I was literally sitting in the shower before, and I had this almost flash through life for whatever reason, and I just think these lessons. I said this on the social media the other day as well. My grandmother taught me. She had emphysema down at Redfern, 88 Everly Street, and we were sitting there, and I sort of obviously must have looked sad, and she goes, "What's wrong, son?" I said, "Oh, you're about to leave this planet." She was a huge inspiration and guidance to me as a kid. And she turned around and said, "I'll never leave this planet." I said, "How do you figure that?" She said, "I've taught you knowledge that you'll pass on to other people. Therefore, my spirit will always walk this planet," along those lines. And for me, that was very powerful. And I think learning everything that I've got, we as human beings, for whatever reason, are experts within particular fields, but we hold it back. We might even be an expert ourselves without being qualified, and, on a certificate level, but a life level, and we hold back from hearing how we overcome these obstacles, roadblocks, or whatever it may be within your life. Every single person is unique, and they've dealt with things differently. Share the shit out of it, and through these podcasts and any interactions through content I post out on social media, I'm trying to do that so that someone lives a better quality of life, and that means the happiness, the success, the health, the relationships you have by what I've learned, so that you can actually apply it into your life. Please do everybody a favour, share what you know and share that knowledge.
Yeah, wise words. I've had a few people on there. I started the podcast. I do hip hop music, and it started off with a few friends, and then it started to grow. I've had a few writers on, which we'll get to that too. Had a few writers on. My mate just put out a book about graffiti from 83 to 93, really good book. But then I hit up. It started off with Brent Simpson. Yeah, and I'm like, I love what he's doing. I said, I want to hear your story. I said, you get little bits there, and that's really inspirational. And then spoke to Russell last week, and then yourself. And not that I want to really go down that path that Brent's doing and hijack all of his. There seems to be a lot of crossing over now with Spanian and Gary Jubilant and myself and Brent and I've spoken to John Killick, and he's like, I'd be happy to come on and have a yarn. But what I do love about these stories is all you fellas who have been in the nick and coming out and changing, and you're in a position to say stop, think, and the people like you are more of a deterrent than the actual prison themselves, in my opinion. When you can go, look, don't go there, don't go there. And like I said, we'll get to it later about how I said how I want to quote you in this, in my assignment that I'm writing. It's just really good advice what you're saying, and what am I getting at? I've lost what I'm saying now. But just how going on with you and Brent and Russell and all that they're just such amazing stories that need to be heard. And kudos, hats off to you, especially for those boys who went through some horrific shit, to be able to come out and talk about it with nothing. They don't really want anything in return. They're just trying to help people.
Absolutely. And so many people, firstly on the sharing side, they don't want to share because, one, the vulnerability. You think about Russ and Brent, they've been so vulnerable and open on social media, 100%. Dropping it to the world. And as I said, they don't, in the nicest way, give a fuck about what somebody thinks. Can I swear on this podcast?
Man. Yeah.
So they just don't. And that they own their journey in hope that someone else doesn't go through that or speaks up about what they've gone through to make sure that they live their best life from that point on. And this is the same for myself. And the second part to that is don't ever think that your trauma isn't as good as somebody else's, so therefore I'm not going to that journey. What did you learn during that journey that you could share with other people? Every single one of us has something unique about us.
Yeah.
What we do, we get caught up, as I said, comparing ourselves or our stories or our lives or the clothes we wear, the cars we drive, all these different components of life.
Yeah.
And then we go into this shell and we've got something beautiful, unique that we could share. And once you start sharing it, as I don't know if you know TikTok Gary, he's literally going through a bit of a healing journey himself on TikTok, and he's just been very vulnerable and got out there and shared his story. And I think him during that journey is a great lesson to anybody. It gives him power of his past and allows him to create his future through that openness that he's sharing on social media. And I know during his journey, he's sitting there talking, and all of a sudden I could see his alarm bell go off, or a little thing, light bulb go off in his head saying, "Oh, that's why I've done what I've done, and here's the lesson from that experience." And that could be yourself. So please don't hold back on being everything that you can be by carrying everything that you got in that invisible backpack of life, because it will weigh you down to a position where you don't want to be, into that darkness.
Crazy.
That no one likes to be.
Crazy. Yeah, inspirational, man. Even following you on Instagram is pretty inspirational. Like that when the other day when I said, "Tell me more about this cut the bullshit program," because I'm at a point in my life where like I'm kicking the booze. That's the way, and I had a few drinks that night, and I messaged you, and the next morning I'm like, "Fuck." Did I sound like a goose? Because I would have been, and I'm like, well, no, I'm gonna own it, and I apologize. Sorry, mate, if I sounded a bit pissy, So, and because I had a good run, and then I sort of slipped back, but that's life, So I'm signed up again for Dry July, and I've already started. So
love it. I think that's it. There's a couple of lessons in amongst that too. Just own who you are. Yeah. My biggest thing, I've tried to get out of saying sorry to people and saying thank you for being patient or something different. Because sorry feels like, and what ends up happening, we sort of end up beating ourselves up. Sorry, mate. Sorry. And you're sort of almost taking yourself down these notches. So I've got in the habit of saying thank you for being patient, or trying to change the language to change the outcome. One of my favourite sayings. And even if I say sorry, then I'll say, how can I put that in a different version and still come back and say that to yourself? And the second thing, enjoy life on your terms. And I always say to people, mate, if you're drunk, you're partying, whatever it may be within your life, that's what you choose to do. And best of luck to you if you're living it on your terms. But if it's impacting your health, this is a huge message to everybody. You can party, you can go and get drunk, you can do whatever, commit crimes if you want. I'm not here to say you're right or wrong how you live your life, but just make sure you look after your health. There's a time, you can only damage yourself so much until something calls out to yourself. And I've lost friends to it, whether it's the party scene, the impacts of that scene on their health, then where they're eating bad and they blow out type 2 diabetes, and then they're no longer on this planet. And that's a sad journey because you actually see that happening. And as much as I'm trying to share that journey and say, hey, make sure you're looking after your health, at least you got some form of balance in amongst that. Because once you have an imbalance at some point in time, your health's going to knock on your door. And sometimes the first sign's the last time. So do yourselves a favour. Know what that looks like in a balanced fashion before you go into it.
100%. Jesus.
Very important.
Yeah. So speaking.
And you found that.
Yeah.
You found that from hopefully Dry July.
Yeah. Well,
I'll keep an eye out on you.
Nah, cut the bullshit, mate. Yeah. Nah. I downloaded an app. What happened? I've had a tumultuous relationship with booze all my life, and my parents were alcoholics. I've been a heavy drinker, binge drinker, alcoholic. I'll go out there and say it for a long time, and then I've chilled out. And then the other week, I had a drink, and then I went to university with a hangover, and I was so fucking dirty on myself, because it was really important. Like, the tutorial was really important, and I wasn't taking it in. And I'm like, what are you doing? You know, you're here, you're at school for a reason, and you're going to go and get pissed the night before. And then I went back through my phone and I've messaged you, and I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake. And I'm like, nah, I'm owning it. I've told my lecturer, I said I'm hungover, you know, and sent you that message going, you know, I was a bit frivolous last night. I do apologise, you know, because
Yeah.
I felt like it was disrespectful to you because what you're out there pushing. You know, and I'm inviting you on my show, and then I was a bit like, yeah, Buzz, hi, you know. But
I think the biggest thing out of all that, just one, the honesty. I appreciate that, brother. And if I can help you in any way, shape, or form, draw a line in the sand and start to head in the other direction. Because if it's this is for anybody, whether you're taking drugs, alcohol, whatever, or any toxic sort of behaviours that might be making you feel a particular way, what you've spoken about, then maybe it's something that needs to be looked at. But also, what's causing it? Was it something that just became a habit and ritual because you hung around people, or is it some sort of trauma, stress, heartache, anxiety that's in the background that you're not dealing with and pushing to the side? And if you can deal with that and unpack that invisible backpack, and before you unpack it, always think to yourself, what's my best outcome or perceived outcome from the situation that I'm currently in? So for yourself, it would be good health. And being a writer from back in the day, you might know that one of the most famous writers I know who's been down the same path as yourself is now quite sick. And now I've seen it happen more than once, especially with the Aboriginal community as well. And it breaks my heart to see people go down that pathway. And if I could sort of put a little line in the sand, cut the bullshit, whatever it is for yourself or anybody out there, please reach out and have that conversation, because the more support you got and the more you can unload that invisible backpack, the more likely you are to step away from that situation. And that's up to you. If it's causing you stress, heartache and pain, or it's impacting your mental health, then it's going to cost you too much within your life. And as you said, you got lost at that uni thing, and let that be a lesson in a nice way, not only to you, but to everyone that listens to this. Yeah. Because we get lost in life in that situation where we think we're numbing ourselves or making ourselves happy, but the realistic impact, you can't smash up the inside of a car and then not get in there and expect it to be brand new after 5 years when you're just throwing rubbish into it, and damaging it, not cleaning it, and so forth. Yeah. And that's the best way of putting it. And I mean that in a nice way, brother, because I appreciate your honesty. And I just love to have that conversation openly, especially with someone who actually owns it and says, hey, here's where I'm at, here's where I want to be. Yeah. So hopefully that conversation helps somewhere create change and live a better quality of life.
I'm sure you do. I'm sure you are helping, mate. But I want to talk about your early days and your crime. But while we're here, let's talk about the Cut the Bullshit program. Break it down, because it's starting. You're starting on the 1st. So
which is a Wednesday.
I'll get this episode out Monday, so people can listen to it. And if just break it down in layman's terms.
Yeah, so basically over the 30 days, we're going to challenge people to tackle everything that's held them back within their life. We're going to create a life plan. We're going to create their perfect life during that journey. We're going to take away any excuses, any limits, any fears that you've got. We're going to get people to really challenge themselves during that journey, whether it's on an individual level or within the group. And we're going to support people. You can be as vulnerable as you want to be. And we've spoken about Russ and Brent doing that brilliantly on their journey towards a better life. And you can have a look at how well they've transformed. You know, Brent was a sergeant of a bike club, and to be able to change and transition back to playing football, trying to live a good life and doing great things, that's a monster journey in itself. Russ on some pretty decent heavy drugs, and then transforming his life to help other people across Australia. I think that's unbelievable. And as soon as we cut the bullshit out of the excuses that we have, the enabling excuses that we have built within ourselves, and people do, are you free tonight? We'll do that walk. Oh, no, I've got something on. You have a look at that person's diary. We know that it's empty, but it's just something inbuilt within yourself, right, as the normal response. Yeah, and we're just going to pull people up and within the group and with it from myself, well, we're not going to be harsh about it. It's just about saying, hey, what I've recognised is that you keep telling us why you can't show up. Tell me why you can show up, and show up for yourself more importantly, that self-love, self-care, self-worth. And I think when you do that on a regular, when you do that on a regular basis, the only outcome is going to be a lot more happiness within your life. And that'll happen over those 31 days. There's a challenge every single day for people to really tap into, and whether it's unpacking their fears, whether it's public speaking as an example, whether it's posting their journey on social media and being able to own that journey by writing a little sort of spiel about where they're at and where they want to get to, and not being, not having that fear of being judged over that 31 days or for the rest of their life. Really letting go. And, I think that's a beautiful journey for anyone, to be able to let go of that heavy backpack that's been weighing you down, get the monkey off their back. And, it took me 12 years of constant grind around my own business to be able to get to a position where I now said, I'm going to tell my story about me growing up and what I had done, in hope that it just inspires other people, not in hope that, I'm remembered as a famous bank robber or anything of that nature.
Yeah. No, it doesn't come across like that at
Yeah.
all. So how is it?
Journey. What are the lessons?
How? So do you need to be local to you to be involved, or is it going to be an online thing? Or?
Absolutely online. So it will be done via Zoom. There will be workshops every single night. They'll be short, sweet, and neat, and there'll be physical exercise as well. That'll be live 10 minutes a day, and that's all we ask of somebody. Try and create a new habit and ritual. And no matter where you start on the journey, whether you're a beginner or an advanced level athlete, as an example, we've got something for you within that program. And you can do that anywhere across Australia, let alone the world. So, and we've had people sign up from across the world. So we'd love to see more people come through the program and really say, hey, I've had enough. Let the last 2 years be a reminder that time is precious. If you don't do anything and hadn't done anything over the 2 years to enhance your life, this is a pure opportunity to create change, and I'm going to help you do that. Literally.
Crazy.
From lived experience.
Yeah. All right, let's go into your lived experience, all right? So we're going to backtrack. We're going to backtrack. Now, this is by no means a glorification of crime, and I've never once seen you on your social media or on any podcast. You don't boast, you don't brag, but you're honest and you're transparent about it. So you were a bit of a naughty lad when you were younger. So how did that all start? So let's go back to, you've climbed out of this window, you've done your drop out of the window. So and you straight into getting into trouble. So just walk us through. I've listened to a couple talks with you, so I kind of know. But for my listeners who don't, what happened? What was your first crime? And then walk us through to how you got serious. Did you go through the boys' homes and?
When I first ran away, I went to sort of school friends' houses and couch surf, probably the best way of putting it. And I had one particular friend who took me on for quite a while, his mother. And at some point in time, I felt like I was becoming a bit of a burden, no money. And I don't think I can't remember going to school. And I was sort of hanging around the area. And whoever wasn't going to school, I was hanging around them. And then a lot sort of crime started up. Me and my brother were hungry one day. Went out, got some food, and we got into a place just to get food, purely to get something to eat, because we were absolutely starving. And the parents were doing their own thing at that point in time. A lot of dysfunction between both because of their own little journey together. And we just went out to get some food and found a whole heap of money within this shop, and the rest was history. It sort of really kicked off from that point. I realised, hey, there must be money in these shops. Let's get into some other shops and make sure that we're able to survive and have a roof over our head and everything of that nature. And, I don't know how we done it, but we used to go down to a hotel, which was called the CB Hotel in Central at the time. And we would have been 12, 13, 14 years of age. And I think it was $20 a night at that point in time. It's disgusting rooms. But for us, that was probably luxury. Realistically, it was luxury. I slept on a lino floor, as an example, with my head on the pillow, or with my head on the side of a foam mattress. So for me to get at my own bed, that was actually luxury, even though it was a really run-down sort of joint. I don't know if it's still there. I drive past it, it still sort of looks like it's there. If it is, hopefully they've done it up a bit. But in general, that was just a life of crime, and we started kicking off. And by the time I was 12, I was in Yasma, which is now, I think, a training centre for juvenile justice.
Yeah.
But in general, mate, landing there at 12, I've got a photo somewhere amongst my photos, and the photo of me, I just look like this lost kid, and I just don't understand how a judge or anyone could grab this kid and really sort of say, hey, let's sit down, what's going on within your life. And I think the only thing we got and we get in life is this judgment of what we've done. And if we dug deep as to why we've done it, I never was asked, why did you do it? And I think for me, that was just a sad journey. You think about that 12-year-old kid sitting in a police cell, no parents, no one around, just going into a boys' home for the first time, and then that starting to kick off as being a natural habit and ritual, and seeing people and meeting people and networking within that circle, learning things to survive. It's a crazy journey, and it's a sad one. And until we change something around that younger kid at that process, going down some form of diversion with people like Russ, Brent, myself, or whoever it may be, we're going to see a lot more destruction within the community. People don't realise that you can lock them up and throw away the key, but you're building these beasts, whatever way you want to put it, that come out more educated around criminality, with more drive to make sure that you're never caught. And, that crosses paths with people, and unfortunately people get hurt. So it's something we should really tap into and have a look at.
What are your thoughts on, this is going back to what we spoke about during the week, about the study I'm doing at the moment. What are your thoughts on young Aboriginal kids who think going to prison is a rite of passage or a badge of honour? Did you feel that way when you were younger? And did you recognise that amongst your friends?
I just felt we didn't have any fear because we knew so many that were there. And it almost makes it okay to get to that position, because you know that these 10 people at that place, Yasma as an example, and when I land there, I'm going to have all my friends there. So what's the fear of me stopping at that particular point in time? And I think that rite of passage or badge of honour was well and truly there without being spoken about, but knowing about and saying, if I go there, all the boys are there. And I think we can somehow shift that as well. Like, there's so many complexities to these young kids that are feeling unworthy or left behind for whatever reason. Parents may be taking drugs, alcohol, whatever it may be. Parents abandoning kids for whatever reason. And I understand life will be life and people struggle and go through different things. So I'm not here to judge people. Even looking at the parents and how we can help them create and shift change so they become better role models for these kids. And I think, until we take that away, we're going to see a lot more Aboriginal kids predominantly make up the numbers that we see through these stats. And to me, that's a bit of a passion in the background that we're about to start a big journey on with Russ as part of that, to create some serious change for these younger kids that think, it's a rite of passage that their postcode is what they fight for. Fight for yourself. And that's the biggest message of it for any of these kids that might watch this. Fight for yourself and the journey of what you want out of your perfect life. So if it is the nice cars, the house and whatever else, create a business and be creative around it, because everyone's got some great skills. And I think in the world of survival, you go all out, you go all in, and you have no fear, no limits, as I've spoken about before. And if you can transfer those skills into the business world, you have nothing but success. And you give a belief if a lot of younger kids can start to transition like this, other kids that are that age will see it and know that it's possible and start to shift that mentality, create a better reality around these kids in life. It's priceless.
Yeah. Don't know how I'm going to summarise that to quote you, mate. But no, it's funny. As I said to you during the week, I'm writing a paper on it at the moment, and it's a massive problem, and that Australia can't work out. And the research I have come across is, and the thesis I'm sort of leaning into just for this paper, is that a lot of people in remote communities, they're getting locked up for car offences. So maybe maybe unlicensed, and maybe something needs to go into, do Aboriginal people need a license to drive out there? Do they need to know about a roundabout and green lights when there's no green lights out there? So maybe should there be a different type of license for this? And then the time they're in there, they're on remand for longer, and it's a fucking massive problem, but
It's crazy.
yeah,
Because it's a knock-on and flow-on effect to whether they've got kids, whether they've got families, and whether it's the role model towards the kids, or the families are suffering by not having a breadwinner there as an example, or something of that nature. Especially, as you said, driving offences are huge within the Aboriginal community, and a lot of people don't have their licences. And as you said, this knock-on effect that has, then you can't get to work. You already maybe have a criminal history.
Yeah.
It's just huge roadblocks that are going to stop somebody that wants to step across that line, and that they, the first thing, maybe you've got a criminal history. How are you going to get to work, which is 40 minutes away?
Yeah.
And if it's remote, as you said, it might be 3 hours away, as an example, or something of that nature, that they need to drive and then drive back at the end of the week, and that just won't happen even. That just puts a huge block on somebody's life, and something we really need to take into consideration as a society, not just for Aboriginal people, but people in general.
Yeah.
Look at the holistic picture of anything or any situation, but we just don't do it.
Yeah.
It's that, this person's no good, they've committed a crime, they've driven without a license, and there's no sort of background until they get sentenced. What if you did that at the start of the process and said, what could we do to help you not be in this same situation, and help the person through it? I think we'll see a better outcome for the community in general.
100%. Yeah, it's a big one. It's a massive one. The more I research it, it's just like, fuck, you could write a whole thesis on it. It's Australia's done. I think
a lot of people push away from it too because it's so deep.
Yeah.
And they realise that it's not our generation that's going to create that change, but we're going to be part of setting up
100%.
a structure that gets into place. And I think people sometimes go, oh, well, then maybe I'm not fulfilled in that journey.
Yeah.
Some people love that journey and say, I'm happy to do so. I'm dedicated to that time that I've got on this planet. But it's just a deep conversation. I could see you even sort of moving and thinking about it. That's how deep it is.
Yeah,
it's a harsh one.
It's crazy. All right. So I'm gonna switch it up. What's it like? What's it like to walk in and rob a bank?
I think initially it's crazy, and then you get into this thing where it just becomes an absolute norm of your life. And I think it's more about less collateral damage to those involved in the situation. Was always my thought process. Even the last bank robbery in Melbourne, we had a kid crying, and I was sledgehammering the safe at that point in time. And it sounds like a gunshot because you hit it and it's sort of bang, bang, steel on steel. And I passed the sledgehammer to somebody, ran outside, said, "Who's got the kid?" and walked the kid outside. And that was in the video I sent you today. And in general, for me, it sounds crazy, and the judge actually took that into consideration. Says, who does that sort of thing during the bank robbery? And as I said, it was so much about just survival. And I never broke into a house in my life. And I think it was more about me just surviving and not picking, but choosing something that I thought wouldn't miss it, a bank as such.
Yeah.
And that was crazy mentality, but I believe. And I think walking in there is there's a bit of adrenaline. So you have to have some form of adrenaline, and then you just got to be committed. I think my dad's discipline at that point in time made me do as much as I possibly could leading up to the event to make sure it went as smoothly as possible. But as I've just spoken about, you have a kid in the bank crying. I ran out, I said, who had the kid? Let the kid out of the bank. And I think that's just a lot about, as much as it's crazy going in there, I was always thoughtful about who was in there sounds crazy, right? Because you think, why would you even go in there? But it was a crazy, contradictive mindset that was going into that bank. And I think I was so committed to survival, as I said earlier on. If you got in my way, then I was going to do everything I could to get you out of the way. And that meant that I was determined to take the money. I was determined to not get caught. And obviously, it was, you think at the time, when you get away with it, I suppose running into the bank, as I said, it's just a massive adrenaline rush. And it's, you've got to think about jumping over a counter that has a screen that pops up in like a millisecond. And when I say pops up, it absolutely slams against the roof. People died from that actual journey themselves, got trapped in that. You risk your life. But someone asked me, did you ever think about it? And you sort of do, but you just train in the background to make sure that when you leap that counter, you do it at a time when no one's looking. You're across at that point in time. And I think that to me was just a crazy journey, and one that I look back on and go, I can't believe that I was that person. Literally, at this point in time in my opinion, going back through my mindset to think about what it felt like is just insane. To know that you were that person, it blows me away.
So, how many did you get pinched for all of them? I don't want you to implicate yourself. But how many you reckon you did that you can mention?
I did 2 that I got charged for, and that's all I ever did. And that's probably I was in the mode of survival, and that's you just did what you had to do. And I think for me, doing what I was doing at a smaller scale, I was thinking always about how could I make a huge amount of money and not have to do regular things. I was thinking about this today. People wake up and go to work every single day, and for us, we woke up and went to work every single day, and we had to make money just like everybody else did. And some days it was huge, some days it was less. But when we worked out how to make more and more money, and every time I was going out, I was trying to think of innovative ways of making huge money, so I didn't have to do it every day. I could have a 6-month break and come back at a different time. And that, whether that was a sort of mental change towards creating change, I think I was just sort of at a point where I just didn't want to do it every day anymore.
So that video you sent me said that you were under surveillance, so they had you. So you didn't get to. Did you get to run amok with any of the money, or you got pinched straight away on that one?
No, pretty much. We went to Melbourne at some point in time. One of those that was within the group was under surveillance, unfortunately. So they put surveillance on us pretty much straight away in Melbourne. They passed on that information to Melbourne Police. They watched us, and they just watched us plan for the whole lot, do the whole lot. At some point in time, I actually got an idea that they were onto us. Spotted a surveillance car about 3 different times in 3 different locations. Had the conversation with those within the group and said, let's call it off and just get done for the car at the time. No, we're right. Went through with it, but we won the surveillance when we robbed the bank. But they said that we had looked at this other bank and therefore had set up at another bank. And when we were coming out, they were just coming to the bank. Even that thought process, just, people everywhere, then getting out of the car. Us just lucky to be getting in the car and taking off at a point in time. Otherwise, who knows how, I might not be sitting having this conversation with yourself. And
so what year is this? Because the armed robbery squads were pretty hectic back then, eh?
Yeah, 2003, and we went into town. We thought once we got away, I was a bit still wary because we got chased by a bloke on a motorbike, and I said, mate, that bloke rode like a copper, or he races motorbikes. That wasn't a normal bloke on a motorbike. We later found out that he was a surveillance officer who kept up for quite a bit, and went into town and went into Foot Locker thinking we were sort of sweet, but I was still really edgy about it all. I just didn't feel good. Next minute we were on the ground, and that's how quick the life of crime sort of ends. As much as it seems nice and shiny and, a couple of 100,000 a year or whatever it may be there, it happens that quickly. I gave up 7 years at that point in time, and if there's a message I pass on to any younger kids out there thinking, I'm going to make some money. But this day and age especially, even worse, the amount of technology that the police have got, whether it's putting bugs into cars, putting cameras into cars that look part of your car, it's insane. And, the amount of cameras that are out on the streets and everywhere else.
Yeah.
You'd be crazy if you kept doing it. And I think I was smart enough in one way to recognise shit. I think a lot of this stuff's going to end soon.
Yeah.
They were starting to get smart around banks. They were starting to get smart around, cameras was going up absolutely everywhere. And I started to think, what are you going to do? And what do you want to get into the process of selling drugs at that point in time? And I'd lost a lot of friends to drugs, so I wasn't keen on going down that path as such.
Yeah.
And then, peddling that out myself, and each to their own. I've got no judgment on anybody that wants to choose to do whatever life they want to do, but I just recognised that I didn't want to go down that path. I was at a point in time in my life where I'd recognised that a lot of this industry that I was in literally was changing, and I just sort of started to step away, and I was just at a point where I said, no, this is it, and I'm done with laying on that floor. Sort of started to think about it.
So you never used...
The rest of the system.
You didn't use drugs?
I experimented with other drugs over time. Probably the worst one was cocaine.
Yeah.
I had smoked pot when I was a kid. In and around Everett Street, it was quite normal in the area.
Yeah.
The reason I gave up, I actually got chased by a police officer, and the bloke was carrying a bit of weight, putting it probably nicely, and he kept up for quite a period of time, and it was because I was huffing and puffing. I was dying, and I'll never do that again. From that point in time, I said to myself, I'm actually in an industry. If I'm going to do something, then I'm going to keep myself fit. So I trained every day. I ran. I practiced different things that would come up as scenarios within a situation of that lifestyle. And we never did that. Most people never did what I did because they said, we'll just practice when we get chased by the police as the example.
Yeah.
But if you're not fit, you're not, if you don't do that on a regular basis, that becomes a harder journey for you during that police chase for yourself, and that could cost you 7 years, 5 years. So I took it very seriously in a sense, and I always went out with that mentality, as I said before. There was no intention to hurt anybody, but you never realise the impact that you left behind from the money that you've taken from people, the trauma that you've imparted onto people because of your actions. Because you never thought about it. I was just like, I've got to survive, and I'm working the same way you're working.
Yeah.
Just crazy. It's really contradictory, crazy mentality, eh?
Have you ever done any, victim... I got charged with a pretty serious charge once, and part of my punishment was victim awareness program. So have you ever participated in them then? And you just don't realise, you think, okay, I'm in here doing this, and then the ripple effect that it goes on to their parents and their uncles, and you go in there and you're throwing hands, and then the damage that does, it's quite confronting, eh?
I think that's something Russ and I have spoken about. I think there was a case, Michael Marslow. I don't know if that was the father or the case. I know it was a Marslow. He got shot. He was a pizza boy, and it was nothing really. It was an armed robbery for a small amount of money, and he shot and killed the bloke. And I know at the time, I'm pretty sure it's Michael Marslow, which was his father, he created a program where you get down and sit with the victims. Yeah. But I think it had a bit of a glitch or hitch somewhere along the line with the victim and the perpetrator. Yeah. And at that point in time, they culled the program, from what I know, just by a conversation. But I think it's huge because, as you said, we just don't realise that I've hurt this lady that then can't function and look after her kids. And who knows, maybe docs take the kids as the example. And just as one little mini example, that has huge ramifications to the community and to that family. And if we could do that, I would have done it in a heartbeat. It would have snapped me clean out of it because I would have realised, shit, as much as I think I'm surviving, there's people on the other end of this stuff. I never thought about it. never ever. Because, as I said, I'm just in survival mode. And until we do that, I think we won't create change. Even in this current situation of this shootings across Sydney and the streets, the other people within that region, the houses that live next to it, the trauma that's impacted to those people, we just don't think about it. It's something that should be done as a norm.
Yeah, the way you're using the word survival a lot. It's what's the word I'm looking for? It rings true. It doesn't seem like you're like, oh, look at me, I'm out here, I'm this crook. You know, you're doing it because you had to. You know, so it's and to look at it like
I had a
work.
reputation. Yeah, I had a reputation too, and I never once went out to live up to that reputation ever. I just went out, and as I said, I probably dedicated my life to making sure that I was good at what I did. My father taught me that, and out of that, as I said, I was surviving. I needed money. I needed a place to stay. I needed to pay my bills, and this is how I learned from the streets. And I hadn't seen anybody else do anything. And when I first got married at 22, then I started to see my wife was someone who worked, different family values. Oh, that's how you function. And you got to understand, it's like people say, oh, that's bullshit, you should just change like that. How many people say, I'm going to lose weight January 1st? On New Year's resolution, lose weight, get fit, or whatever it is, and then fall over within a week. You got to understand, we are in survival mode, and when you get that deep within your brain, as I said, if you get in my way, I'm going to make sure I get to that money and get back home and get home safe. And I had huge success in that, building that reputation of being someone who made a lot of money in that journey. And as I said, I never went and said, look at me, post my name in the papers. I always got my name suppressed during any serious charges, even though they might have ended up on the news, because I never felt proud about what I was doing. I just wanted to, as I said, put food on the table. And that was how I was built as an individual. And so I said, hey, shit, there's a different way to do this. And then I started to learn, but I kept sort of dabbling back in that world and making money. And that's what cost me the 7 years. And I think at that point in time, I said, man, I need to do something differently. Otherwise, I'm going to end up dead or, just dying in jail.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. So you've gone... So you did a bit of nick in the boys' homes, right? And you're mucking around doing your graffiti. You were stealing you into the banks. Then you went and did a big whack, did you? You did 7 years.
7 years, the last one. Yeah, correct.
All right. So where was the first one? First.
As a kid.
No, so first adult prison.
I did 18 months. We got in a police chase, went out doing ram raids that night. We were with another car, which was John Laws's Porsche at the time. And we got chased back from the north side. Yeah, we got chased back from the north side. His Porsche ended up crashing through a chemist window that night.
Whose was it?
Then John Laws. And sorry, John. But I shouldn't laugh about it. But on a serious note, like, you look back on it, it's just crazy. Driving, I did a post today about it too. Driving at just crazy speeds.
Yeah, I read that.
Unbelievable speeds. And I've seen crashes now. Social media being very present. You're able to see cars that just clip a car and then lose control. And there was one on the Harbour Bridge recently of someone doing that exact thing. And the amount of times we must have come so close to that same thing happening. And as I said, we could have killed a family or something of that nature. Yeah. But you're just in survival mode. That's what you think. And, I keep going back to it. There's no other thought process. How do I make money? How do I put food in my mouth? How do I live the way that I want to live? And, I ended up getting chased back from the north side. We come across the bridge and they had it blocked off, so I went across the big island. The tyre blew out. We then drove from there to the fish markets with the flat tyre. We couldn't get much traction. It would not go over like 30, 40 Ks. The car, something happened to it, and wasn't a good thoughts looking back in the mirror and seeing 20 cop cars behind me. Jumped out, sprinted off, ran through the fish markets, jumped into the fish markets water, tried to swim away and got fished in by the water police. The photo was pretty iconic because I got out of the paper, out of this, I'm handcuffed with just a pair of shorts on and I'm absolutely soaked. And I think that was the first introduction to jail. I did 12 months for that. Whole heap of breaking in that night that the car was linked to. And as I said, it was just a badge of honour. First time getting in jail. My brothers were there. All the community was there. Had no fear around it.
What jail?
I went to Long Bay first, and then I went to 5 jails in that 12 months. Big introduction. I actually got in there and went from Long Bay to Parramatta, within 2 months. And the Young Offenders program was kicking off. I was the first intake. But when I got to Parramatta, interesting story, like introduction to jail, and a bloke that had been there was well known. My brother said, go and see him. He seen me. You Jeff, yeah, sweet, don't worry, I've got your back, I'll look after you. We get called in, they call everyone's name to go in at lockdown, and they go, are you in with him? And I'm like, yeah. And they said, do you know about his history? And long story short, he had unfortunately acquired some HIV. So I was just tripped out by that. Get into the cell late at night, crash out, wake up, and there's a syringe hanging out with some blood in it. For me, that was, this place.
Yeah.
Imagine an 18-year-old kid, and I'm exposed to this situation, and as much as I was surviving, that traumatized me. That, like, to this day, I still think, because what's going on? And, all we had to do was take it out. He obviously didn't, but you're still in that motion, and I think that's how, like, the experiences of jail and that journey, people say, lock them up and throw away the key. You're traumatizing people. There's so much. Every day you wake up, you're hypersensitive because it's like you're the Terminator assessing every single thing in your sight. And that's any single person. They might say, oh, no, it's cruisy. Everyone's on guard, even if they're not on guard. And, things are happening and transpiring within that. You see things happen, fights, stabbings. People died. Seen a prison escape with a helicopter with Johnny Killick, and I was on the Oval with him at the point in time, and just things like that. Like, that shit traumatizes you. And we were never offered. Mind you, when the helicopter took off, they shot at the helicopter. We're on the Oval. The helicopter's in the middle of us all. And then the tower's up here, and it's literally shooting down at this helicopter. My mind's going, thinking about movies and the helicopter blowing up, and then the blade sort of turning and coming and chopping us in half, and there's no counselling. And I think people got to realise that we're human beings, and if people understand why we maybe get into some situations, look, don't get me wrong, there's some really crazy people within the system that, when they do something like that, I just knew that person was of that nature. But there's a lot of people that are just surviving it, that have been beat down in life and never got a good start to life. And, people say, oh, that's bullshit. Everyone's got choices. When you don't have a choice, when you grow up and your parents are taking drugs and alcohol, smoking in front of you, and then, giving you your first cone when you're a young kid, it's insane, because that's your leaders, that's your role models. And and it's going to take a huge shift for that kid to change. But people do, they get in this world of judgment. If we can get out of that as human beings and help one another and look behind the scenes as to why an action's created a reaction, will create and shift change for the betterment of the world. And until we do that, we're going to still see what's escalating in Sydney at the moment with these shooting crimes. And that was someone getting hit in the background by a bullet. And it's just a matter of the time. It's going to happen. Guaranteed. Imagine the trauma for all those families involved, and imagine the actual people involved as well. It's a flow-on effect. Everything's a flow-on effect.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna speak with. I've been talking to John. So what's the deal on that day? What did I hear? You were on the phone or something, and he asked you to get off the phone. Is that right?
Yeah. So That's right. I was on the phone to my wife at the time, and Johnny goes, "Oh, I need the phone really quickly." And little did I know why he needed it quickly. And he said, "Whatever you do, don't let the." They had a door that led out to the oval. 2 couple of doors you had to go through, but the first unit door, he goes, "Don't let him shut the door." And I was like, "All right, sweet." And the officer at the time, he's like, "Morgan, let the door go. Let the door go. We're going. That's it." I was like, "One more's coming. One more's coming. One more's coming." And I had a bit of a battle, and anyway, Johnny come running out. We went out to the oval, and I scored a try down in the far corner. So I was walking back along the side, and Johnny was just to my left, and we were literally about to kick off. And the helicopter had flown around a couple of times. And I was like, "This is weird." And then it comes down and sort of landed. I thought it was a golf course next door. I always thought it was because it's so green. And then next minute it came over the top and it landed. And I remember the officers did nothing. They just sat because we were on one side of the oval, they were on the other side of this little shed thing. And they did nothing until Johnny Johnny doesn't even remember this, but Johnny sort of undone his jumper and he threw it. It was like, blow this joint, but I don't know why he done it. Maybe he thought it was restricting him or something. But anyway, he walked up, jumped in, and the rest is history. And then they started coming over and sort of ran over towards the helicopter. Shots rang out and helicopter did a few turns, and I thought it was too heavy maybe, but what it did just turned, so it would take off in a particular direction.
Crazy.
We just watched that sort of almost sail into the sunset, and it's like
crazy.
Well,
Australian history, mate. That's
it
Australian
was a crazy
history.
movie.
I wonder if they'll ever make a movie out of it.
I think they did make a movie out of it.
Have they?
I'm pretty sure they have.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure they made a movie out of it. It's like you got to think about just the balls of it all.
Yeah.
Whether it's Johnny or this. Like if we have this is the thing to anybody watching this. If you've got that much balls and you put that into business, you're smashed business out of this ballpark. I'll tell you now, because put your time, energy, and effort into something positive. And I know you might think it's positive at this point in time. You might even be driving a Lambo or something nice, and living at a beachside house with a bunch of money. But what if you could utilise all of that and put it into the skills that you've acquired into the business world? Because discipline is discipline. It doesn't matter where you go. Commitment, so forth. And what I find in the criminal world, because of the survival, you will go 24 hours, you go 48 hours where you don't sleep until you get what you want. Yeah. And you've got to think about that mentality, how deep that is on a work ethic level. And as I said, transfer skills into a positive and life will be good for you.
100%. Those
as it has been, mate.
Lateral skills. All right, so you did your 18 months. That's crazy that you were part of that history. That's fun for the grandkids, mate. So then you're out. And then what happened with your big one? So I want to go into this. Obviously, I know I've done my research. I know a little bit more, but some my listeners probably don't listen to some of the other podcasts you've been on. So you got 7 years. What was that for? And can you talk a little bit about the role you had in there? Because you were a bit of you had a bit of a way with meandering through the system of being a bit of a negotiator. So first of all, you're in a different state, so I wouldn't mind talking to you about the difference between the prisons from New South Wales to Victoria, and then your role in there, and then about someone that you don't have to tell their name, but someone that you met in there that sort of set you on a bit of a path and gave you some advice too.
I think I did 5 years in between the 12 month sentence. So I did 12 months, then I did 5 years for bank robbery in Sydney, and then I did the 7-year sentence for another bank robbery in Melbourne.
Right.
When I went inside, I always had the belief, same thing, we're in a highly stressful situation where everyone's on edge. People are going through, their own journey of healing. A lot of those people within the system have been traumatised, whether it's sexually abused, put down, beaten, whatever, and told that they can't be or achieve anything within their life. So you've got these broken people all in amongst one another, and it's very volatile and very, it's like walking on eggshells. You've got to be wise with your words, probably the best way of putting it. Talk shit, get hit, right? So it's just about I was always more about how can I bring everybody together. I didn't care what race you were. We're all human beings. And how can we make this situation as best as it can be? And that sort of, I think over the years helped me build relationships with people on a criminal network level, because then my network became very wide. It didn't matter what race I had people within each race as an example that I could reach out to for different things that I wanted in that world as an example. But what it did do, it meant that I didn't have to stress as much, and nor did everyone within that jail that I was in. I think that was something that I loved sort of doing organically. I didn't set out to say, I just thought, how could we all make this better? And I went about trying to bring people together, doing things that weren't the norm, and just saying, well, human beings, as long as we get on, that's the main thing for ourselves. And, that just made it a better environment to be in.
What Victorian prison was it? Where were you, Barwon?
Oh yeah, so I went to the remand centre, which is in the city. Then we went out to Port Phillip, and then I went to Barwon, and I went from Barwon. My E2 classification from Sydney followed me to Victoria Prison, which was quite crazy because I'd never technically been locked up in Victoria, so I was judged from the past that I had within the system of Sydney. But lucky enough, I got to a point where I did get the opportunity to, when I was at Port Phillip, start a university degree, and through those prisons be able to continue that and get to Loddon, where Loddon was, and this is, I think, is what really solidified my change, where I was in units, and in the units there was 4 of us, if I can remember right, and in that unit you could cook, you had knives, you had everything, TV, you had your computer in your cell, everything of it. So it was just like, a shared house on
like
the outside.
Pre-release units.
And you could order all your foods. There was a proper canteen at this prison, which I think was, people don't realise the importance of this, because usually you only order once a week from a sheet, and that would come out in your plastic bags. You pick them up from the canteen. It's shut for the rest of the week. So if you didn't buy something or forgot something, you missed out for that whole week, right? But at Loddon, they had a canteen which you could just access every single day. So if you forgot something, so I need butter or whatever it was,
a bit more humane.
Go up and grab that every single day. And it was just a bit more humane, exactly. And the fact that then we had courses, a lot of people had access to the courses that were available. A lot of them were compulsory if you wanted your parole. And that meant if you, each today, if you want to say punch it up your butt and whatever else to the system, you're just going to serve more time. So same principle, I was like, I want to get out when I can get out. I want to do everything I can to make sure I get out at that point in time and get back into the world of surviving. And I didn't do it to sort of better myself, but organically by doing that, I was learning things as I went along, whether it was computers, business studies, Cert 4, MYOB, and all these components of life. And over that journey, just tapping into those courses, I was able to change. Whereas Sydney is a very gladiator school. Lock you up, throw away the key, get out in the yard, be ready to punch on. Different mentality and different reality when you get out. You see that, I think the states, you look at the shooting crimes in Sydney, obviously Melbourne had a gangland period, but in general, Sydney's been a lot more violent for a longer period of time. And that's a reflection of the system. And, the term corrective services, there's no corrections in Sydney versus Victoria, totally different. Like, we had the computers in our cell at Barwon, which was the maximum security down there, to be able to do that. The course, the bachelor's degree is an example. Whereas in Sydney, you talk about a computer in your cell, they'd laugh at you. So 2 totally different systems, and the way they approach things, really, if you're at a point where you want to go out and create change, you've got a lot more support systems in place. And Sydney just sends out gladiators who have a broader network now, that are tougher, stronger, harder, train harder than before. And each time, you go in, people are just training harder and harder and getting smarter and smarter. And you've got people in the community who want to say, lock them up and throw away the key. You're crazy, because these people are going to come out at some point in time, and it could be your family that is in the background of one of these bullets that fly around Sydney. And
Yeah.
Um,
Have you
that's
given any
amazing, you know,
feedback? Have you given any feedback to the prison system on this? Now that you're in this position
well,
where you are now.
the funniest thing is we're about to do something with the corrections, more as a consultant with another person running this. Russ is a part of that as well, and we'll definitely give as much feedback as we possibly can, because if you keep going out, Corrections New South Wales have a great position right now they're in, where the people at the top of that situation are more about the reform towards education of inmates within the system.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we see some huge changes coming over the next, say, 5 years
Mm-hmm.
that will really impact the New South Wales prison system. And I think if that can really occur and they follow through with that, we can see these people come out as better people, because a lot of them are just damaged people looking for support. When you get loyalty from people within a system, you show your loyalty back to that system. When you get people that want to help you on the other side of that, maybe you'll show your loyalty back to that person. And I had this huge, as I said, I had someone within that system that had lived a normal life, made a bad choice, and they came into the system, and I recognised by interacting with this person, I was learning how to talk, how to conduct myself, how to respond to situations that I normally would have thrown a fist, fist out to something, and really deal with things in a totally different manner. And that changed who I was on the back end of the support from the Victorian prison system. And I think that should be a little bit of a guideline to yourself with how we can shift and create change. Give people exposure to people who are there or live a different type of life, but still understand people and acknowledge the journey that you've been through, rather than to say you've got to make a better choice, because that's just not going to fix something.
No.
It's just not. Because, as I said, the habit and ritual is there. The intention of the New Year's resolution is there, right?
Yeah.
But within a week, most people give up because the habit and ritual isn't there.
Yeah.
If you can build that into a system that recognises the education behind what they're passionate about, which is something very important. I was able to do a lot of fitness courses in there as well. That made me hugely passionate about something that I wanted to do, and that helped shift and create change once I came home.
So you actually got a degree in there?
Yeah,
All right,
so it's pretty crazy. Right?
Yeah, so two things. So what was the name of the degree? And I'm studying at the moment, and I've got help coming out my ass, right? So how the fuck did you do it in a system where there's no lecturer there to help you? You know, I'm sure you had minimal, like you're not swiping into the library and hanging out with people.
It's so I did a bachelor's in nutrition science, so I could become a nutritionist. But the long story short to that conversation is that we had lecturers come in to us once a week.
We did.
We'd be able to print, and this helped us immensely. You got to think about this. As you said, the struggle was hard enough outside, let alone in there. Once a week, you got your material, you printed it off based around the suggestions. They worked with us as well as they can use. That was great. And they tell you need X, Y, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. But if you missed a printing on that journey and you missed page D as the example, you sort of almost had to guess a bit through, guess your way through it. The only thing that was great about it and why I did really well is that I had time. I had time to sit there and really think things through, write it out, maybe make some adjustments. But you wouldn't get the feedback until a week later. These days you could jump on there and say, hey guys, what do you think about this question, and what are your thoughts on this, and whatever else. We didn't have that. And if I was studying this, there was other people studying, but most people were studying different things.
Yeah.
So you couldn't you get together and have a conversation, but they wouldn't understand the context of the education behind what you're trying to do. So it was a struggle street. But once again, if I can do that with 1 day a week of the lecturer coming in, giving them 1 hour of their time, you got to print out your stuff in that time while you're talking to them.
Jesus.
And that's the only access you get. And then once you print out, they give you, I think they gave us a little drive, and they put it in the computer. And on that drive would have, your questions or your assessments or whatever it may be. But man, you were running solo. You couldn't do no research on Google
Nah.
You know, and you go up to the library. The library was only open at certain times if it was open, and even then they wouldn't have books on what you were studying.
Nah. So were you academically minded, or you built that up?
I think I was.
Yeah.
I did really well at school, to be honest. I loved school
Yeah.
as a kid, and my dad, as I said, pushed me into a position to really focus on my schooling at that point in time. And I never disliked it. I just found myself in a situation where my parents, the hardship of their journey impacted my journey as an individual, as a kid. And then, thinking that I was in a too strict of a household led me down a path that definitely could have gone in a whole different direction of life, especially because I had that will to study and succeed. And going, since then I've done a heap of studying and absolutely loved it.
So that was my next question. Have you done more studies since you've been out?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm all about upskilling. So it's all relative to what I'm passionate about, whether it's in the health and wellbeing field, like mental health and wellbeing courses, whether it's something around nutrition, something of that nature, and more so around how the mind works. Yeah, and I think that's something huge I've recognised as an individual, how I rewired that whole mindset. So I went out and studied along those lines, and then I studied a lot of people, to be honest. So I talked to people and really understand why people took particular actions. And I developed a sort of understanding of patterns of behaviour, creatures of habit and such. And I think for me that has helped me, combined with the education, combined with the lived experience, be able to impact and create change for people's lives. And for me it's just a priceless journey, and one I've enjoyed.
That's crazy. So what do you... Like, I saw a photo of you playing footy. So what's your forte? Are you like cardio and fitness? Do you lift? Do you play? You're a footy player? Or what?
I'd say I always believed in every component of health and wellbeing, whether that was fitness, whether it's some form of strength, some form of flexibility, some form of sport. And I think, as I said, going back to where I was originally, it was my trade. I always stayed fit where I was game ready. Yeah. And game ready meant that you could leap a fence in a heartbeat, or push something off yourself, lift something up, carry something that you had to carry, just weight a bit of weight. And I think that just put me in a position where I was fit for life, I suppose. My quality of life was through the roof, other than my mental health.
Yeah. Do you think that comes with it? Like, do you think just being fit the mental health will follow, or do you think you need to put a fair bit of work into that mental health?
I think both need to go hand in hand. It's like anything, right? You can get fit but then not eat well. They're not going to match together. And I think the same thing, you can be fit but not be well. Yeah. And I mean that in the nicest way to those going through a bit of a journey. So I had to tackle what was going on in here, how I was built, how I could create and shift change, because I knew that the actions I was taking were negatives. And then what was the positives out of this situation? So I said, if other people can work and make money and live a good life and buy, whatever it is that they want, or travel the world, why can't you do it? You're such a disciplined, hardworking individual. And that's how I looked at myself. Transfer that skill over here, and it's been nothing but success. And for everybody out there, in any way, shape or form, you might not even feel that you got a resume. You might feel that you fucked up in life before, but you're focusing on the negatives of every component of it. What are the skill sets? Are you disciplined? Are you loyal to friends? Do you speak and have effective communication? They're all skills that you can transfer into your own business or somebody else's business to create change within your life. But we focus on the negatives of life. I'm not good enough. I'm not strong enough. I'm not healthy enough. I'm not pretty enough. Whatever it is, rather than saying, how can I shift and create change from this situation? No matter how traumatic it is, what's my best perceived perfect life from this situation? Write that shit out and then start to action shit every single day. And when I say shit, action things every single day, and just be patient with the journey. Don't beat yourself up. You're going to trip over, you're going to fall back out, just like everyone trying to lose weight come New Year's. And, don't give up after the first week. Something will happen. Something will smash you up and tell you right there and then you aren't good enough on the back of what you're already thinking, flip that first response to any situation and tell yourself, I am good enough. And this is just a lesson. What's the lesson I've just learned to make me better at the next opportunity? And that's how I always create change. Never focus on the problem because it will always bring you pain. Focus on the solution and it will always bring you happiness.
Yeah,
Beautiful
very,
change.
very wise words, mate. The title of the podcast lies in there. The title lies in there. I want to talk to you about this conversations of convenience. Now, I heard you say this the other day. I think it might have been with Gary Jubilant.
Yeah.
Can you unpack that? I found it really, really. It struck a chord with me because I do it and I am very good at getting shit done. If I say I'm going to do something, I do it. But then there's I say my life is I've got 9 holes but only 8 pegs. And there's always one hole I haven't got a peg for, And I spoke to a psychologist once, and he goes, "Isn't it okay to have one of those holes without a peg in it?" And I'm like, "Nope." So, but that sort of hit home with me. That conversations of convenience. Can you break that down? What you mean by that?
Yeah, whether we have them with ourselves or with other people. And the greatest way and the easiest way to think about it, when we go to parties and we don't know other people, what do you do? And it's sort of, to me, a conversation of convenience, unless it can lead you down a path of enhancement. And what I mean by that, in jail, I'd have a conversation. I wouldn't just talk to anyone for the sake of talking to anyone. My dog's just come in the room and wants to play. But in general, you wouldn't sit down with someone in jail and just say, "Hey, how's your day? What's happening? How was the trip over here?" It was more about getting to know someone on a personal level as to you see they're struggling, so why, what's going on, and you have that conversation. But you have the conversation, start-up conversation with intent. There's a lot of people just these days get into a situation and go, hey mate, I've seen you post. Is everything okay? And they go, yeah, sweet, and they just walk away from the conversation. Next minute, that person's no longer on this planet, and that's the depth of this conversation. We have these conversations that don't make any, or don't bring an enhancement into our lives or the person that we're involved with that conversation in. Just don't have it. Just don't waste both of your time. Time, energy, and effort on this planet is precious. We don't know. Tonight, you and I fall asleep, and one of us dies. We just don't know, but we share our time like it's just knowing. We don't care. We'll talk shit to somebody else to kill time while we're at a party, just as a conversation of convenience. And what that does, it just means it's a dead conversation that's going absolutely nowhere. And it makes you feel, you put yourself on a level, you surround yourself with anything within life, crime, you're more than likely to get into crime. Surround yourself with people taking drugs, more than likely you get into taking drugs, right, as an example. Surround yourself with people who talk these conversations of convenience, and you're just not going to feel worthy in any way, shape or form because you're not trying to level up in every situation. So for me, as an example, is it a network opportunity for my business to grow and prosper and also flip and help them in one way, shape or form? Maybe it's me talking about mental health or their health in general and giving them the advice, whereas they connect me to 20 different businesses that gives me business. And I know it sounds harsh because you want to talk to people, but at the same time, it's just killing time, energy and effort. And time, as I said, is so precious. We just piss it up the wall and it does this sort of, I've recognised it and I'm in a position now, the dog's absolutely running amok in the background. I'm in a position now where I've recognised it and I don't want to give that time, energy and effort up to people that we aren't going to thrive together within this life. Even if it's one lesson that I learned with that person, beautiful, but that conversation of convenience, how's your day, Mary? And they walk past each other in the office. And I do these workshops as an example, leadership workshops or mental health and wellbeing workshops. And we sit down within a group and we share something about ourselves. And someone might share that, their father, their mother, or someone within their network has passed away. And everyone's like, oh, really? I didn't even know that, Mary. And I'm like, this is what I'm talking about. There's so much chance in this world of social media connection and everything else to be connected, but we don't. We just don't go, how's your day?
Yeah.
How's your day? Yeah, good, thanks, bang. Oh, you get in the cab. How's your day, mate? Yeah, good, mate. Yeah. And it's just conversations are convenient from point A to point B. I get in the cab these days, and if someone asks me what I do, and I'll ask them, what are your goals? What do you want to achieve out of life? And if they start to have that conversation, I go, what's stopping you? And then have that type of conversation. Because it's more of something that I'm sharing my knowledge to hopefully bring an abundance of happiness into that personal individual's life. Not just like, hey, mate, how's your day? Yeah, good. Oh, yeah. You see the Broncos won last night? Yeah, mate. Yeah. Who do you go for? Yeah, And it's just an absolute dead conversation. And I understand it's cool to be nice to people. Yeah. But at the same time, imagine how many times that taxi driver or Uber driver goes through that same conversation throughout the day, right? Yeah. And I just get in and I'm like, mate, I'll ask, I might ask, what are your goals? What are your dreams? Make it of substance, something of substance. Russ was a great communicator, right? In the sense of, me and Russ, if we get together, he brings me up. We don't just ring up and say, hey, what's happening? I say, oh, yeah, is the weather good up there as an example. But here's an opportunity. Would you like to be involved in? What my thought process for? And then it's a really conversation of substance, not convenience. Yeah. And we live in a drive-through society where everything is about convenience, and it's just our conversations, our interactions, and when I say convenience, a lot of us are having these conversations where we just we use somebody else. Can I borrow money? We keep them in our loop so that person can borrow money of us. We keep them in our loop. You want to come out and drink with me this weekend because I'm not feeling good and I want to drag you along as well. Yeah. Even though the person has told you that they want to start a healthy lifestyle journey as an example. And these conversations of convenience are smashing up society. And I think in general, if we can step away from it, start to have a conversation of substance, then you're going to find some real enhancement within your own life around so many aspects of it. And the only thing on the back end of all these conversations is fulfillment and happiness for yourself.
Do you think?
Right, let me know that.
Do you think we're capable of having these conversations of convenience with ourselves? Do you think? Do you think that's a big problem? I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that.
Absolutely, because we just talk absolute shit to ourselves. I'm going to do this. The next time I wake up in the morning and I say in my head, my word is my bond, my word is my bond, and I get louder and louder in my head as I say it. Yeah. And I consciously feed my brain this conversation. Yeah, well, now, don't get me wrong, traffic's going to hold you up and make you late at point in times, especially in Sydney, but you're doing your best to get from one meeting to another. I understand it, bro. It's cool, but in general, we just talk shit to ourselves. Yeah. And what do you reckon that does on our self-esteem, self-confidence level? Think of yourself like a battery. I always say this, we charge ourselves as humans. We charge our phones every single night as human beings, but we don't charge ourselves on a self-love, self-care, self-worth level. And you're saying the phone's worth that. I need to access my phone. It's going to give me some self-love, self-care, self-worth, but you don't do it on a daily basis, right? And this is where this conversation of convenience, I'm going to lose weight. Yeah, mate, I'm going to start this business. Yeah, and I think I'm going to go back to football. I'll challenge the person because people always say to me, especially if they go, "Oh, you want an online trainer?" Yeah, I want to lose weight. I go, I've got a program kicking off. Cut the bullshit. June the 1st, let's go. You're in or out, right? And it might sound like I'm trying to sell my program, but I'm trying to get the person to step into their fear, lean into the situation, and create change because they have. How long haven't you done it for? And they go 10 years. I go, today's the day. Do it right here, right now. And they're like, really? I'm like, right here, right now. Do it and I'll change your life forever. And if not, I'll give you the money back at the program if you participate in the next 31 days for the Cut the Bullshit program as an example, right? Because I know if that person does everything within that program, new habits and rituals are going to come out into their life. And the only outcome, as I said before, is that abundance of happiness and fulfillment around what's important to them. So I'm not saying, hey, you need to live at X, Y, or Z life. And, how they perceive full of riches, down by the beach, whatever it may be, overseas. Yeah. I'm saying to yourself, tap into what you're telling yourself and stop having these conversations of convenience that are beating your own self-confidence up to a level that you never believe in yourself. When is it going to change? And here's another little bit to it. If it hasn't changed in a year, 5 years, 10 years, when will it change?
Yeah.
It won't change. And when you get to your elderly ages, you're going to go, I had these great idea once. Oh, I wish I asked that girl on a date because I reckon I could have married her and had the kids that she had to, build blogs and all these different conversations because they're just conversations of convenience and they're just, cut the bullshit literally for yourself because you're worth it. Literally, I mean that from the bottom of my heart.
Yeah, 100%. I'm a doer. Like I say
love it.
I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna do it. But again, I have those conversations of convenience with myself with other things. So like I'm overweight, and this is it. I'm going, but I'll still get up. I'll still get up and go to the gym and chip away. I've got a lecture today. I'll get away and chip away and do that. But I'll tell you, I was talking to my wife about this cut the bullshit program, and I said I work well with a mentor. I work well with someone going, come on, mate. And so accountability is huge for me. If I commit to something,
Absolutely.
then I'm like, all right, I'm in. I can't let that person down. So yeah,
Love that.
I can 100% see how that works. But
Here's the biggest thing. Here's the biggest thing in that conversation you just had. Don't let yourself down. That's the most important person on this planet. And even if you signed up for my program or someone else's program, the most important person not to let down is not because I'm only the guide. Don't let yourself down. Show up for every single moment that you're meant to be there.
Yeah.
And the only thing, as I said, will be just success on the other side. And what your success looks like is that the happiness, your mental health, sleeping better, whatever it may be within your life, you deserve it. And every other person does. But we focus on not letting someone else down, and we live in this external world of constantly trying to please people. Do I look good? I'm going to buy these new clothes because I want to fit in. Fuck that. Just live for yourself. So many people live in everyone else's lives right here. They don't pay the rent here.
Yeah.
The only person paying the rent here is yourself. Only feed yourself what you give yourself. And the only time you step out of that situation is when you gain knowledge and exchange knowledge with somebody.
Yeah.
Then let that come into yourself and watch what happens.
Yeah.
Just try it and let me know. Shoot me a message.
Yeah.
I guarantee you like the form forever.
It's true. I mean, it's like the study, 12 weeks ago, like I've just put in some assignments and got distinctions. 12 weeks ago,
Love it.
I had no fucking idea. No idea. Like when they put it to us, they said this is what is expected of you in 12 weeks. I was like,
love it.
But because exactly. Yeah, so ready to shut down, and I'm like, no, one at a time, just one little notch on the bed head at a time, and
this is just leaning in.
Yeah,
and as soon as you lean in, and you just don't be fearful of being judged, whether it's you or anybody that watches this podcast. We often think about people judging us. What marks did you get? Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
I had a crack in life. This is
exactly.
where you stand
and how do you measure
into a
success?
situation. I ask people success, and especially a lot of Aboriginal people as an example, they go, I wouldn't ask that question. And I was like, oh, well, why is that? And they said, I don't care about money. So success, some people determine as money, right? But it could be, as an Aboriginal person said, so would you like to learn your language that maybe you have to learn? And they go, yeah. I said, well, then that's maybe your success. Is success sitting on a beach somewhere, watching the sun come up with total inner peace, with minimal money in your bank account. And I know people like that are far more happier because they've managed their money to get through every single week, but doing that life. And versus the millionaire or billionaire, when we work with these people who then have an imbalance in their work-life balance, right? And like you can see the difference. Knowing what you want out of your life is so important to that inner peace, but people just have this definition of success as having a Lamborghini and $1 million house.
Yeah.
It's anything that you can achieve within your life that's important to yourself. And you define that, not me. I just kick your ass in the Cut the Bullshit program coming June 1st. If you tell me that you're going to do that and you don't do it and you don't show up for yourself, and as much as it sounds harsh, I'm not there to be a prick to anybody. I'm there to hold you accountable and responsible to what comes out of your mouth so your life goes to a whole new level. We'd love to see it, as many of you in there as possible for that reason, not for the money's sake. That's the organic side of things.
No, it's a
Someone who
reasonably
can say,
it's cheap when I looked into
wow,
it.
that's crazy.
It's crazy cheap. So 31 days. Now it sounds like a plug. So 31 days, $100 for 31 days. So I challenge.
That's it.
I'm pretty tempted to come along for it. just
$3
just
a day, like,
just
right? I
even
think
as
under $3
research,
for the thing.
even as research for the show, I'm pretty tempted to have a crack. But I'd like to challenge some of the listeners to come along and be. When we go off air, I'll talk to you more a bit about exactly how it
Yeah,
works.
that's fine.
Yeah.
And to anyone out there, please understand, I've had a passion to change and save lives because my parents both died from cancer, brother, sister, suicide, another brother, preventable health issue, Aboriginal community that has huge health issues, suicide rates through the roof.
Yeah.
Then realising over time as I got into that industry that it wasn't just restricted to our community, it was everywhere. People were dying on this planet way too early. People were dying before they've even left this planet because they're so dead here on a mental health and well-being level that they're not functioning. And what we do is help you become the healthiest, happiest, most successful version of yourself. And that's what we do. And if that aligns with yourself, no matter how deep you think your thoughts are, no, you can't change me, I'm not worthy enough, I'm not good enough, I don't love myself, all of the above, this is where it will change in this program. And I'm not here to sell it to you, but that's just what we do. And we deal with whether it's young kids through to athletes, corporates, communities, inmates, and we change these people with huge ingrained habits and rituals the same way I changed myself from a destructive human to a productive human. And if that resonates with yourself, seeing the program. If it doesn't, I wish you all the best, but do yourself a favour. You're thinking about this, don't procrastinate about it. And if I'm the sign for you to go and sign up to some other program, let it be. That's the whole conversation around this. And if I'm the person you resonate, go and sign up. But do it straight away, because as soon as you don't, you'll say, oh, yeah, but I don't know, Jeff, maybe he's conning me, he's going to take my call, right?
And there's those conversations.
Joe Wicks, maybe it's Michelle Bridges, right?
Yeah.
Oh, but I don't know, Michelle's too fit for me. You'll talk yourself out, right, of this conversation.
Yeah.
Do yourself a favour, step into it, drop into it, and just learn on that process. And you can't make a mistake. You can just learn from it.
Yeah.
What can I do better at the next situation? Are you going to fail? No, you're not. The only time you fail is if you give up on the program that you sign up to. Yeah. Understand it's a long journey, and you spoke about this. You don't get it right the first time. Anyone that thinks a business person, Thomas Edison, who created light, or any human being, an athlete got signed up from the get-go. Michael Jordan got knocked back as an example. Step into that fear and watch yourself shift and create change to a better human being. And that's the human being you should be. So today's the day. Let me be the sign, whether it's my program, any other program out there that you've been thinking about, go and do it because you deserve it. And that's all I'm here for, like to have that conversation.
The timing's right. It's funny. I was at the gym the other day, and there's a what's the word for it? There's a cohort of there's a group of fellas there that are into the ayahuasca, right? So they're like, it's like this secret society of taking it, and it'll unlift the veil, and it'll do this, that, and the other. And it's funny. It's like, people will. Well, I haven't tried it, so I don't know if it's going to work or not. But it's funny how people they've gravitated towards it. They've seen that it works for them, and now they're almost advocates for it. So, once something works for someone, they'll advocate for it. And I was talking to them, and I said, I'm sort of struggling with this at the moment, and I'm doing this, and I'm looking into that, and I'm looking into this, and they're like, and I'm a big believer of like books and people finding you throughout life. So you meander through life, and I'm a big believer of that things find you. And I said to my wife, I said, I wonder if I should have a crack at this ayahuasca stuff. And I researched it, and I'm like, nah, I don't know about that. But and then your program, because you meet people out there. So you meet people out there, and I fucking promise you this, because I got injuries. I got some pretty bad ankle injuries and back injury. Oh, we'll get you going. We'll get you good, mate. We'll get you good. And then so they stop doing this. So you meet one person, you go and have a few sessions there, and you're like, fuck, this cunt. This dude's full of shit. You know, he just
Yeah.
wants my money. So boom, you get rid of them. You
Absolutely.
go and see someone else, and they're like, "Oh, just sit over there and do a bit of yoga." So you got one guy over here going, "Yoga's no good." You got one guy over here going, "That
Yeah.
guy's no good." But
Absolutely.
you both want $150 an hour off me, so you get really confused in your training. So I just said, fuck
Absolutely.
is I do Muay Thai, so I'm like, fuck is I'm just gonna do what I do, go strip back to what I know. But there's a million programs out there, but I'm pretty tempted to have a crack.
Find, find, find what you're passionate about. Some people love boxing. Some people like swimming. Some people like ocean swimming. That's the biggest thing. And as I said to you before, I'm not here to say to you sign up to my program because I need your money.
No.
I'm here to say that if this aligns with yourself, if you are a human being that wants more out of life, this is the program for yourself. I'm going to challenge every single bit of your makeup to create a positive, proactive, and productive person around what's important to yourself. So you're going to write that out in the program. And I don't care if you can't spell or whatever. No one's here to judge anything. I'm here to judge those that show up, and I'm going to help them with all the knowledge that I have to help them change. I don't ever go out and sort of say, "Hey, sign up to my program. It's the best program out there." And oh no, don't worry about that trainer and CrossFit shit and all of the above. Right? Keto, what are you doing, Keto? Everyone will choose their own journey. Whatever my beliefs are or opinions around a situation, don't matter to that individual. Even if it's based around data, that I could prove to that individual. If someone likes CrossFit, they'll go and do CrossFit. You can say there's a lot of injuries out of the situation, right, as an example. And people still say, but I love CrossFit and I love the community within there and I'm going to lift those weights in that particular way. And if I damage myself in that journey, I did it doing something that I loved. And you got to think about the depth of that conversation. If we can follow our passion and be that person in that journey, I'm not saying that getting into school. I'm saying these people have found what they're passionate about and they're willing to go down a path that they know can hurt them. Think about how deep that passion must be towards that point. Find your passion. And if I'm that person and this conversation's resonated with you, jump into the program. If not, do this for me. Do this for you, not for me. Sign up today to whatever it is that you've been talking about or thinking about, because the only way that you'll transition and change your life is by going down the path of. But do a bit of due diligence, as you've spoken about, as to is it something that you're passionate about? I could tell you that particular things that would help you lose weight super quick, right? And I know a lot of people go down a drastic path by taking some form of medication to strip the weight off. But is it sustainable? Is it enjoyable? Does it impact your mental health? And these are the components I look at. So I don't say, hey, sign up to my program, I'm going to change your life. It will change or save your life, right? Because I'm going to pass on the knowledge. But the thing is, you got to look at that person and say, does he speak on a level that I think he can impact and affect change? Do I resonate with this person and align with this person's values, morals and beliefs around this situation? And then you can make a sound decision. And whatever the decision is, just do it today. Like, let this podcast be the sign or whatever it is that blows up in front of you and you say, that's it, I'm putting I'm putting my head down and just getting is it a degree that you want to do it? Is it a course? Is it a girl or bloke you want to ask on a date? Is it a car you wanted to buy? Just go and do it. Life's this short. Live it on your terms.
I think that's the message to take from all of this, man, is life is short. I'm 45 now, and it's time for change, and got to find that ninth peg for that hole.
Here's the thing: two conversations out. You're never too old to start anything, man. I got people that I was training. Someone, God bless, who had just passed on recently. He was 91 years of age.
Nice.
And they started with me a couple of years ago, and they recognised that the quality of life for them was huge. Him and his wife, and unfortunately, we lost him, and he taught me some valuable things about life in that little journey together. And I think don't be afraid. There's, you haven't lost if you're 40, 50, 60 years of age.
That's right.
Some of the most, some of the world's billionaires started at a really late age of their life around business, right, or whatever it is that you want to do. acting. I don't know what it is, but
Yeah,
just get out
man.
there and have a crack. Put yourself on the voice if you can sing. Who knows? You could be the next Adele or whatever it is. But as long as you hold back and let everything of that nature be held back by those people, you're going to get in a situation where people's thoughts or actions towards you, you're going to get in a position where you never live your best life with yourself. And
Because of
that's
fear.
the only
Because
bad
of
one.
fear.
Because of fear.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, mate. We've had you for 2 hours. I was going to. What else have I got here? I'm just going through the questions. I think we've covered a fair bit, man. A fair bit. I wanted to just quickly get you to touch on you're hosting the Unstoppable Leadership Conference this year. You want to give that a bit of a quick plug, and then I'll ask you a couple.
Absolutely.
Then I got a couple of little token questions that I ask every listener before we end up.
Yeah, I don't know if you can put the links into for that, but that.
Yeah, I will. I'll put it in the show notes.
Coming up.
Yeah.
I'll be the MC for that. It's down in Canberra. So anybody in and around that area, click on the link below in this podcast. There's also the Social Emotional National Indigenous Social and Emotional Wellbeing Conference in NT as an example. If you want to learn about Aboriginal culture, maybe you're not Indigenous, but you do want to attend, get in touch, have a conversation, come down and sit in the conversations and learn about our country and the impact it's having on people within our country, not even Aboriginal people, just people, right? And then there's a whole heap of other conferences that I'm sort of involved in, and just sort of follow the pages. I'm sure you'll probably drop those links below.
Yeah.
And if you've got a question about any of those, get in. Early bird tickets for that Unstoppable Leadership conference in Canberra will go on close soon. But by the time this podcast comes out, you still have an opportunity to buy into that. Come down. If you do come down, please come, and especially if you've resonated with myself. Gary Jubilant, funnily enough, is involved in the actual conference as well. And
nice.
Great. Have a look at the link below. There are people involved, some athletes, some singers, some absolutely amazing people and the stories that will be shared during that day. Please do yourself a favour. If I resonate, Gary, or anybody within that conference, Terry Campese, another one, please come down, listen to the stories, let them help you create change within your life. And if you do come down, come and say hello to me personally. I'll sit down, have a conversation, and even help you sort of get some framework around your life if that's what you're seeking, or trying to get into a leadership role yourself. And how I went about that, being one of the heads of a criminal gang that was quite successful in what we did, in a sense where we built that reputation that then transferred into the business world. And now deals with everyone from athletes, corporate schools, juvenile justice centres, jails, communities and individuals across the globe. So if I can help pass on that knowledge to yourself to enhance your life, please do yourself a favour. Click the link below, and as I said, you get down there, come and say hello to me.
For sure. And that's in New South Wales, that one in Canberra.
No, that's in Canberra. In Canberra.
Yeah.
So it's 3 hours out of New South Wales, but by all means, that'll be a great little conference. That was just confirmed today. So
far out. Yeah, that's crazy.
I've got a bunch of those, but by all means, as I said, just follow the links in the social media below. I post up anything I'm involved in.
Yeah.
If that resonates with yourself.
Yep.
And if you do come and you came from me, people come and they say, oh, I was there, but don't be embarrassed. Don't be saying, well, get past that, man. I'll sit down and have a coffee with you and have a great conversation, and hopefully enhances your life. Sure. It means a lot that you've travelled a distance to come to something of that nature.
Sounds awesome. All right, so we'll knock through a couple quick ones, and then I've got a signature question.
Yep.
So, this is a random one I had driving along in the car the other day after my COVID fucking hallucination dreams. Do you have a dream that you're still in jail?
No, not really. No. I've definitely tried to really wipe that from my memory.
Yeah, good.
I have a fear of going back to jail, not because I'm fearful of somebody,
but
I just think I'm at a point in my life where I'm changing so many lives and having a positive, huge impact on the community. And it would be, would kill me for any reason to go back in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah. Yeah, I have weird fucking prison dreams. I don't even know why. Like, I have these
Talking
weird,
about it too much, mate.
I have these weird dreams that my brother and I have murdered someone in the past, and
Wow.
the coppers getting close to finding the body, and I always wake up like
Yeah.
it's a reoccurring dream, and I always wake up like
Wow.
fuck.
Maybe it's a bit of a. We have a thing in our culture that, you know, spirits or ancestors come to us and deliver a message, and maybe there's a message in amongst that about you drinking and something of that nature, and where it could possibly lead you in a situation. Because as we said, you shot me those texts, and it didn't bother me none. But in general, that action could be in a pub somewhere where you and your brother get in the fisticuffs because you've had a few too many. Someone hits your brother, you hit them, and then all of a sudden they hit their head, and you know you're in that jail situation. So that would be something I'll pass on to you and everybody else. There's always a sign in something. Take a lesson from everybody.
There is another one quickly. Thoughts of a book? You're gonna write a book? That seems to be the thing to do right now. Get old John Killick to fucking pen it for you.
Johnny gave me enough. Probably made me bold with his escape. I'll try and avoid him now. He's doing great things, and as much as he went through, you know, same thing. His history right now, he's dedicated to really helping people in general live a better life. And mate, I can't give nothing better to him. We are in conversations with people about the life and the journey, or going from whatever you want to call it, rags to riches, or the journey in between. But for me, it'd be more the lessons of crime.
Yep.
And the lessons of crime mean, what did it teach me about life?
Yeah.
And that's what, as you said, I'm not here to sky or float or get clout or anything of that nature. But what can I teach people around? I imagine stepping into the field, having to step out of the car, run into that bank. I think it's tackling fear at its highest level.
Yeah.
Then dealing with people in stressful environments and situations. Jail is like war zones. And when you're doing a 7-year sentence, you're at war for 7 years every single day. From the moment that opens up, the door opens up in your cell. And that's a brutal journey. So, as I said before, if I can get past all of that and share those lessons to everybody through the book, that's definitely what I'll do within that book. It won't be about the bank robbery. It won't be about how fast I go to the streets of Sydney. If there's a lesson in amongst all of that, by all means, I'll share it. But and I think crossing that over, people love true crime, but not in the sense where I'm gloating about it. Just more about the.
That's why tonight I even thought I even thought about that. Like I didn't want to really harp on it, and because it's obvious listening to you that is that a French bulldog?
Wait a
minute. Let me get a photo of that. Hang on.
That's usually her conversation when she's talking like that.
Hang on a sec. Wait. My son wants one of those dogs.
There you go, Noah. You got on the podcast. You're famous.
Yeah, that was that fine line. It's obvious talking to you that you've just put it behind you, so I didn't want to glorify any of it, but I did want some context.
Absolutely.
I did want that background context for the listener.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Okay, so
that's for me. You can't change anything, and this is a lesson for people in life. You can't change if you don't acknowledge what you've done and take responsibility and be accountable for that action. How are you going to ever change? Yeah. If you bring an excuse to the table and say, there was a reasoning behind a lot of the stuff of that survival, but I then recognised at some point I taught myself how to get out of that.
Yeah.
Here's a better way to survive without damaging people and not get yourself damaged in the process. And that's a huge journey. Do that for yourselves. Stop bullshitting to yourself. Take accountability. Be responsible. And even if you fucked up in life so hard, whether it's domestic violence, committed a crime, something of that nature, your business failed or whatever, draw a line in the sand, cross over to the other side and say, here's where I start to become a better human being. And what someone says or thinks about yourself isn't your business. How you respond is the awareness that you have within yourself. And
100%.
It's a beautiful spot when you're back in that conversation. station.
I saw something the other day said hang on, let me think about this. Every saint has a past, every sinner has a future. You know? So
Yeah.
all
Love
right,
that.
last one, then we've given your program a pretty big plug, and what I'll do is after we hang up, or you can send me all those links so I can put them in the show notes.
Yeah.
But so the token question that I ask every guest on this program is if you could if you could send yourself back a fortune cookie in time with some advice just on the inside the fortune cookie, so like 1 or 2 sentences, what would it be and why?
Use your time, energy, and effort like it's the last second of your life. And what I mean by that is every second on this planet is precious. Utilize it doing everything that is intentional around what is important to yourself, surrounded by those that love you and you love them, and make sure that you cherish every single moment that you actually get to live on this planet by being intentional around every single action.
That's got to be the most positive answer. I've had some strange ones. So normally it becomes the title. That's a big fortune cookie, man. Is that fit into your diet?
Yeah, no, it was only the first bit. It was only the first bit, and that would be to use your time, energy, and effort. Cherish your time, energy, and effort. Probably be the easiest way to put it.
Yeah, beautiful.
And then I rolled into the explanation because we don't appreciate it. And we're like, fuck, I'll survive, and I'll be like tomorrow.
Yeah.
And people, until they get to a point where the damage so hard they end up in hospital, and they go, shit, you know what? I wish I'd done something different. Don't wish, just do it now, man, and draw the line in the sand, as we spoke about before, because action creates reaction when change is ready to happen. By having that line in the sand.
That's right. And in the words of the Mighty Ghetto Boys, action speaks louder than words.
100%.
All right, mate. Well, we'll leave it there. That's just over 2 hours. Don't hang up. I'll have a quick chat with you offline. But thank you so much. All the links for everything will be below in the show notes. I'll go nuts spamming on Instagram throughout the week too. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Jeffrey Morgan. And I challenge listeners to jump on board to the Cut the Bullshit program with me. I'm going to go on air and say it that as soon as we stop recording, I'm going to sign up with the program. All right, so I'm in for the whole of June, and then I'm doing dry July, so I'm going to be a busy boy. But so I'm on air saying it. Here we are, and for now, don't hang up. But see you later, brother.
That's right, brother. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Take it easy, people.
We'll do. Peace.